pulled up or no?
No.
We
Oh,
don't
I
see it now.
apologize. Let me do that again. I think I did that wrong. Okay. So here's the aerial or the street view that I was
Yeah.
looking at, and
Yep.
the board was not. So this is the parcel I was talking about that was purchased from the Stevensons. This is one of the curb cuts. Here's the existing church, the garage, and then the existing parking area, which is a very strange layout. And you can see there's the second curb cut and then a third curb cut. I assume this must be the rectory.
That's correct.
Building? Okay. All right. So now I'll stop sharing this and I'll pull up the plans. Oh, I just closed it accidentally. My apologies. Bear with me.
Okay.
No worries, Erica. No worries.
Nobody's got anywhere to go.
If you can't find it, I have it open, Erica, if you want.
I have it right here. I just
Okay.
accidentally closed it, so I'm reopening it right now. So let me share it. Okay, and I'll just rotate the view real quick. All right, there we go. Okay. So here's the existing condition sheet. So this is that Stevenson's property that they purchased. And here is the layout that they're proposing for their driveway or their parking lot expansion. So this is the church. This is that garage we were looking at.
Yep.
I believe this is that existing curb cut that's the furthest south.
Yep.
Here's the expansion here. This is a two-way traffic flow pattern. Parishioners that are coming in, can also park in front of the church. They have some handicap parking spaces here. It's a one-way. Here's another view of that area extended. So here's the one-way. They can come down, they can continue to park, and then they can pull out from the curb cut that's furthest north.
So are they gonna keep the? Are they gonna get away with this? Give the second curb cut?
It's funny. I put together some draft comments for the board to help facilitate discussion, and that's exactly a question I had. I think it would be preferred to get rid of that middle curb cut if it's not needed. I mean, I think it's just confusing for traffic goers. And that's, I guess a question for Dan, if that's something they've thought about. I'll just continue through real quick through the site plans. Here are the details for some signage, the light pole detail, the handicap parking details, cross section of the pavement that they're proposing. They're using the bituminous concrete curb. And then here's the drainage plan that I'm sure Danielle will be most interested in. So in order to handle the runoff that's being generated from the proposed expansion, they've designed an underground infiltration system, these pool tip chambers that are shown here. And they have, I believe, 4 new catch basins that will pick up the runoff and then convey it to the underground system. They don't have to comply with Mass DEP standards, but Ducharme and Dillis has designed a system that has done quite a bit. I think it meets about 89% TSS removal, and it completely infiltrates post-development runoff from that impervious area.
So I guess, so they're just using catch basins as pre-treatment?
They also have an isolator row that they've identified in their stormwater write-up. So I'm assuming that isolator row must have a filter fabric
Some,
around it or something.
yes, all right, that's great. Okay, good.
Yep, and then they've also provided here sort of an erosion control plan for to be used during construction. So they're providing silt fence and straw bales and
Now-
protection at the existing basins.
Do they have an overflow for the subsurface system?
Not that I could tell from the design, no.
Are we reviewing the stormwater components of this, or how is this working?
We are. So that is part of site plan review is we can look
Okay.
at drainage. You know, we can look at drainage, traffic, lighting, layout, all of the sort of standard things you would look at for a site plan.
So did he have a stormwater report? Sorry, I
He
apologize. if I missed
does.
that.
Yep.
He does.
So I can
Okay.
go to that. So this is the stormwater report that they provided. That it goes into the existing
And did he-
conditions.
Does he have a table kind of just summarizing the
Yep.
peak rates for the?
They do. So they're
Okay.
actually reducing them.
2-10-100? He is reducing them. Okay. What are the a deep sunshine calculation provides required? So quick question, is this, I see that they're providing, okay, so they're doing 44% because it's an infiltration system. Do we know where groundwater is? Do they do soil testing?
They did do soil testing, and we can go back to the plans. They did. It looks like they did a bunch of test pits. There, the design of the system provides the 2-foot separation that's needed to, you know, the estimated seasonal high groundwater.
Okay, so they have 2 feet of separation.
They have the 2 feet. Yep.
So the only
Yeah.
other thing I'd want to check is just in their HydroCAD calcs, did they use an exfiltration rate or not? Or what is it just 2 feet, or do we have actually even more than 4 feet of separation?
No, I believe it's 2 feet.
It's exactly, okay, so,
Yeah, it's exactly 2 feet, and I think they're raised. I mean, the parking lot area. I looked at the grading relatively quickly, but it looks like they're raising it up. And I'm not sure if they're
Okay.
raising it up. You can see here the grading goes up, and I think I was looking in this area. It was about a 5-foot difference here. If it's helpful, I can pull up the comments, the draft comments I started, and we can start there. And then if there are additional things that catch, you know, the board members,
sure.
you know,
So I
attention, we can then.
Go ahead. This is more of, I guess, probably a question for Dan more than anything, but is there, I mean, is there a reason to have it as 2-way as opposed to 1-way, and maybe reduce the impervious area a little bit?
Yeah, we were trying to, basically, we were maximizing the number of spots that we were looking to get out of it. And I mean, we really haven't looked at, you know, we just assumed it was going to be 2-way. We've got plenty of space over there. So,
Right, yeah.
you know, we just kind of decided to keep it as compact as we can with as many spaces for now.
Okay. But yeah, but like making it 1-way would let you reduce the size of the, you know, the turn and would reduce the width of the aisleways without reducing the number of parking spots.
Okay, interesting. Yeah.
It's just, you know, in all these developments, we're always trying to, you know, can we, you know, trim down the amount of impervious area that's being added. So, you know, that would be, Danielle, do you know how wide the
Yeah.
aisle has to be for 2-way versus 1-way traffic
So-
with street slots?
So right now, my understanding is you've got 24-foot aisles. I believe you can go down to 22-foot aisles and still keep it 90-degree parking.
Okay,
You cannot go less than that. So, I mean, it's really up to the comfort of, you know, your site. I mean, 24 is standard. There's nothing wrong with 24. That is the
Right.
standard width. You know, where you've got kind of the end here, where you've got a radius and stuff, maybe it makes more sense to keep that as 24 just because you're turning. But you could potentially reduce your aisle width and still keep the 90 parking, you could lose 4 feet. You've got two 24-foot aisles, you could reduce it to 22. I like the idea of, the 90-degree parking, just because people have a tendency to do better with 90-degree parking. Just, speaking from some experience in designing stuff. One question I had that I couldn't just see on the plan, where you have the one-way that goes in front of the building. What is the minimum width between the curb and the angled parking?
Go back to the layout sheet and see if it's listed.
Yeah, I don't see a dimension. I guess that's where I was.
Yeah, there was plenty of space there, Danielle, because we were actually looking at potentially doing angled on both sides and running an aisle down the middle, but we decided against doing that. I don't know what that spacing is.
Oh yeah, I guess I'd want to make sure that that minimum spacing still met the ITE requirements. I think I thought, and I could be wrong in this, I'd want to double check, but what is the angling? Is it 60 degree parking, or what do you know what the angled space is?
I don't know what they use for an angle, no.
Okay, so I guess, Erica, for one question I would have is just, what is the angled parking space, and then what's that minimum width, just so that it could be compared with the, I believe 60-degree parking minimum width is 16, I want to say, 16 feet, so just.
16 feet, Danielle, in the one-way area, or counting the spot itself? Must be in the one-way area.
No, so it's 16 feet for the one-way area, and then and that's for a 60-degree parking. So it depends on the degree. So if it's a 45-degree parking, it's going to have a different dimension. If it's a 75-degree parking, 60, so they all have different dimensions. 90-degree minimum is 22 feet, and as you kind of, reduce your angle, you have less required, aisle width that you need. So
Yeah.
I would just say, just to double check, put those labels on it and make sure it meets ITE minimum requirements.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I also see here, it kind of looks like this is a pinch point. It looks a little bit narrow here.
So that's where I was going to say, grab it wherever it is the minimum, and then obviously if it expands and it's a little bit more, as you go further north, that's fine. But just show the dimension where it is at the minimum.
Sure.
I mean, we adopted those minimums when we updated the parking reg
Yeah, I think,
last
and
year,
I think
didn't we?
we did, and I think we took that table directly out of the ITE. So yeah, if you want to just refer back to, you're right, that is correct. So we should have that in our bylaws.
So what I'll do is when I add that comment to our comments to the Board of Selectmen, I'll just, I'll reference our parking bylaw.
Yep.
Yeah, and Erica, sorry, I don't have a copy of the stormwater report. Would you want to either email it to me, or I can?
Oh, I apologize. Yes, I will send it to you.
Because I just wanted to check, and actually, I don't know if anyone could, Dan, if you wanted to mention if you knew that in the calculations if an exfiltration rate was used. If you don't know, that's fine. I can look it up.
Nope, I do not know.
Okay. Okay.
I took a quick look at them. I didn't write them up.
No, I know exactly what I'm looking for. So I just wanted to double check, since I did check the details for the infiltration system, and they do have exactly 2 feet of separation. I just wanted to see if they use that, and if they did need a mounting analysis.
Okay, I just sent it to you. I can take a quick look too.
But if you guys want to continue on, I can look at this while you guys kind of continue to review.
Sure, if that might be faster. So let me pull up my comments that I started to put together. Now you guys can still see the site plans, correct?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, so let me zoom out a little to make that a little clearer. Okay, so as far as comments go, I thought this is sort of a general comment that we've done in the past for other, church expanded uses, where I just note, that religious uses are an exempt use in accordance with the Dover Amendment under Chapter 40A, Section 3 of Mass General Law. Thus, the applicant is subject to a reasonable regulation only as applied to the parking lot expansion improvement project. So that's just, it's just putting it out there that we understand that you're an exempt use, but we can still apply some reasonable regulation to this project. And then I go on and have several comments relating to the layout. The first one is I just note that this, and feel free at any point to disagree with me. I put in that, the proposed project improves parking and the overall traffic flow of the site. I think that's pretty much undeniable considering what it is right now. So that's a comment. The next one is that the applicant should verify which of the existing bollards are to be removed from the project site. Currently, there are bollards placed at each of the 3 curb cut openings along the project site. So I think it would be helpful to understand if, I assume those bollards must be being removed, but it's not clear from the plan. So that was a comment.
Yeah, they'll be removed in the west one and the east one. On the middle one, we'll probably leave them in, or we may even, I know you've got a comment coming up on the curb cut, so in the middle one, so.
Yep, that's exactly what the next comment is. Eliminating the middle curb cut to reduce traffic confusion as vehicles are entering and exiting the site. It is recommended that the pavement be removed and replaced with grass. And then I just have a sort of a subsequent note to that. If the middle curb cut is to remain, it is recommended that the existing bollards remain in place. So, so that's that comment. I've also added, the board recommends adding signage at the northernmost curb cut opening past the rectory building to indicate that the curb cut opening is an exit only, considering that traffic is moving in a one-way direction. So it's recommended that we have, they include signage that says something like exit only, do not enter, so that, we don't have some of the parishioners trying to enter in through an area where it's a one-way with traffic going out.
I think related to that, if I remember correctly, the openings are fairly wide. So it may be worth asking it to be narrowed down to support just one lane of traffic and not the wide opening that it currently is.
Okay, so reduce
the width to support only the one-way traffic.
Yeah, that would be the case on the far point, but not on the easternmost.
Correct. Yeah. Correct. Yeah, it would be the westernmost or northernmost, depending on. Yeah, I guess technically it's northernmost. The one that's in front of the rectory.
Yeah. So correct me.
Do we lose you, Erica?
Oh, looks like she might be frozen.
She's frozen, yeah. Dan, a question that I had was, as people leave, is the expectation that people will use the eastmost exit and turn right and then drive down the driveway and turn left at the western side?
No, it's an interesting thought, though. I hadn't really thought about it, from a flow perspective. We just had roughly 2 exits, from, each side. We haven't put a, right turn only kind of approach.
Yeah.
It's an interesting
Because I imagine
question.
it bottlenecks pretty bad there when everyone's going to be trying to get out of that one lane if they have to make a left.
Right, exactly.
I don't think it's pertinent to.
No, I just think it's a good question.
No,
it's a good question. It may come down to that. It may simplify the speed at which we can exit there. If we had one that went one way and one that went the other way. So we'll have to take a look at that. I'll talk to Ducharme about that.
I don't know if someone has been made the host of this meeting now and would need to let Erica back into it. I don't know.
No, we had this happen yesterday with our DRB meeting. She can join again.
Okay.
She lost connection yesterday, so she should be able to get right back in, but it took her a minute to be able to do that yesterday.
Gotcha.
Oh, here she is.
Yeah. And she's back.
My apologies. My internet has been so spotty today.
Yeah, mine has this whole week with work.
Yeah,
So it's,
never fun.
yeah, be in the middle of a meeting and have the VPN cut out is kind of not very
So,
good.
Eric, I did get a chance to review the stormwater report. Do you want to give you my just 2 quick comments now, or wait
Yes.
till
Nope,
afterwards?
that sounds
Okay.
good. Let's jump to that.
I would just say it's noted in their stormwater report that they, the soils in the area of the project site have a hydraulic soil group of C.
Mhm.
However, in their stormwater calculations, they use a Rawls rate of 1.02, which is for B soils. So I would first just ask that they revise their calculations to use a C, Rawls rate associated with C. And then I would ask, since they have exactly 2 feet of separation and they are using an exfiltration rate, that they provide a quick mounding calculation to show that there's no issues.
So I'm just wondering, Danielle, so I also saw in the report, they were saying that when they actually went and did the soil testing, that it was mostly sands and gravel. And I'm wondering if that played into it. I mean, I know you're not supposed to use a perk rate for your hydraulic
I
rate,
mean,
but
they could, if they had, I guess if they did a test pit or something, that they could include, a test pit log of the soils. I mean, they could easily dispute the NRCS of it being a C, but they'd need to include that soils information, kind of basically stating, look, we've got soils, on-site soils information that says it's this, and we feel that the exfiltration rate, it more accurately represents a B soil and using that. But right now, looking at what they provided, there's none of that information.
okay, so they provided soil
At least I
test
don't see
data
that.
on the plan. But I don't know if this would be sufficient information enough for you to be able to determine. Can you see that?
Yeah, there's kind of like, there's a whole protocol for what they need to do if they want to dispute.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if that is enough. I guess I want to go back and just review the requirements for when you want to dispute it. I think you need some more geotechnical information included with that when you don't use the Rawls rate that it is associated with.
Okay, so what I'll do is I'll provide that as a comment, and then they can come back with the necessary
Yeah.
information. I think it
They
is
could do-
important for the
I
system.
think, yeah, and they could do either. They could either change the rate that they use in the HydroCAD and just match the C, and then they don't have to do anything additional soil-wise, or they need to provide the additional information on the soils to really back up why they're able to use a B Rawls rate.
Right.
And then I would just also add the comment about the mounding, doesn't matter whether it's A, B, C, or D, the fact that they are using an exfiltration rate in their calculations and they have exactly 2 feet of separation. They just need to do a mounding analysis to show the separation.
Well, I can see there's already been some work done to the site. Dave, could you elaborate on that? What's been done in terms of there's some tree clearing and some site testing?
Yeah, I mean, the site was just mowed. We mowed it this winter when we purchased it, just so that we could show the parishioners the size of what was there. So it was strictly mowing, and the soil testing had been done previous to us purchasing it.
Okay.
Okay. If everyone's ready, I'll just continue on with the other comments then.
Yep.
Let's see here. So then I moved on to the lighting. The applicant proposes 5 light fixtures within the expanded parking lot area. The board recommends a lighting schedule be submitted showing the times of day when the lights will be turned on and off. That's pretty standard. We typically ask for that. The next one, the board notes that a typical light pole detail is shown on the site plans. The applicant should verify that the light poles are the indirect shielded type in accordance with section 250-23G of the code. So we always ask for the dark sky compliant light fixtures, so to make sure that none of the light is spilling over into the neighbors. So I think we just need Ducharme and Dillis to verify whether or not that, what they're proposing is that.
Do
The
we
next,
usually ask for a photometrics plan?
we do for special permit. I don't know if we get that detailed for site plan review. It's, that's, we can certainly make that recommendation to the Board of Selectmen, and the Board of Selectmen can make that decision. It's up to the board. If you'd like to make that comment, I can certainly add that in.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
mean,
these
given
lights,
where this is located, I don't
these
think
lights
it's,
are-
I don't know if it's
yeah.
necessarily needed.
Right.
You don't have a lot of close neighbors right around you on this, and you're right on 117, so I'm less inclined to need to push that. I was just curious. I didn't know if we had
Okay.
required.
Yeah, I mean, site plan review only comes up so often.
Yeah.
And so from my experience, we haven't required it, but that doesn't mean
Okay.
that, it couldn't be warranted, I suppose, on certain projects, but so
The
the
only
next-
nice thing I was just going to say about the photometrics is, Dan, if you ended up doing it, it will show you kind of where, if you have any low spots or hot spots or something, but by no means, I think if as long as we can confirm that they're cut off fixtures, I think that's probably sufficient for us.
yeah, I mean, these fixtures are really only going to be used for, Christmas Eve and a few other times. They won't be on,
Okay. All right.
all the time. At least that's our understanding. I do want to talk to the police chief. Like, I know he likes them having them on over at the common, so he's kept them on that way. We'd be willing to do that if he thinks that's a better thing. But realistically, we were just going to turn them on when needed.
Okay.
So the next comment, the board recommends the applicant show or verify the location of snow removal storage. I think that's something that typically comes up just to make sure that they have areas to do that. The next comment, the site plans indicate details for trees and shrubs. It is recommended that the site plans be updated to show the location of said trees and shrubs, as well as provide a planting schedule. The board recommends providing landscaping to the maximum extent practicable to enhance the appearance of the parking lot and reduce heat island effect caused by paved surfaces. So Dan, there were details for some landscaping, but I couldn't figure out from the plan if you were actually proposing any.
No, we're not. We're not at this point in time with the parking lot. Basically the island, will be grass at this time. Is what we're looking at, and of course the natural stuff that is existing there now that we've cleared off the stone wall, will stay that way.
How wide is the island? Sorry, it might show on this site.
Looks like 10 feet.
10 feet, it looks like, yeah.
About 10. So I don't know if it's feasible, but to provide some trees either in the end caps and potentially a few in there, it's wide enough so you could have some shade that would help.
Yeah, and there may be something that's going to be planted there in the future.
Okay.
Once the landscapers get a hold of it.
Is that a comment that the board wants to keep in the comments to the Board of Selectmen?
I would recommend providing, just adding to provide some shading within the parking area. It can get, it's a lot of pavement to, it can get really hot. So to have some shading with trees would be nice.
Yeah, although with where the lights are proposed, adding trees and might be complicated.
Well, you could do it maybe just down the whole center portion of it. Like, don't put them on the very end, but more of, I mean, one, you could put them on the edges, although I know you've got a little bit of some steep slopes kind of coming down. But you could potentially do some there as well as in the interior portion of, yeah, and obviously you need to stay away from the lights.
Yeah, it looks like there's two lights at each end. It looks like there's one dead middle of
Right
the
in the
island.
middle, yep.
You know, so, and I assume that one will be covering most of the center part of the park, both the whole parking area. Yeah, it's just something to, you know, if you're going to be adding trees and stuff in there, you know, think about it ahead of time and see if that changes what you want for lighting, or how you want to do the lighting, I guess would be the.
Yeah.
And the only other thing I would just add is on this, I'm looking at the grading plan. You want to go to that one. It looks like it's a pretty steep slope between the edge of the parking and as you go towards Route 117. So a proposed guardrail, or?
It's not steep at all. It's going to be completely, I don't know what he's got there for.
Because it looks like it's going from 418 down to 412. So you've got a 6-foot drop. Because right in the middle of that parking is a 418 contour, and then the bottom contour that's right next to, I guess, still within the property line is around 412. So I would, considering that there's no bench, I mean, one of two things could happen. Ducharme and Dillis could, you know, provide maybe a 3-foot wide grass so it's flat and then it drops down, and maybe you don't need to worry about a guardrail. But I would just have them look at that area, and then the turn, the radius turn. It looks like the grades there also get pretty steep. I think it's less. I think it's like 414 down to 410, so it looks like it's more of like a 4-foot drop. But that
It's pretty small run, so it's a fairly steep.
Yeah, so usually when you have the slope right next to the curb immediately start dropping, usually you need some sort of fall protection with regard to a guardrail or, you know, stuff like that. If they could redesign it so you actually have like a flat bench and then you drop down, I think you could avoid having a guardrail.
Yeah,
so
I think I need to look at that. Thanks for pointing that out. I want to take a hard look at that because that's
Okay.
not quite the way.
Danielle, I missed a little bit of the second part. Is this the area you were talking about secondly?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, there looks like to be a 4-foot drop there, and then there's a 6-foot drop adjacent to Main Street along the long parking area. So those two areas, yeah, if you want to look at that and just see if there's a way to revise the grading, so there's not that immediate kind of drop down.
I will add that into the comment letter. All right, so moving on, I had a couple of comments regarding drainage. Let's see, for the first one, I say stormwater runoff generated for the proposed parking lot expansion area, subwatersheds A2 and A3 will be collected by deep sump. I think I'm just sort of basically reiterating to the Board of Selectmen what's being proposed. Deep sump hooded catch basins and conveyed to an underground infiltration system beneath the parking lot. No overflow is provided. The next one, downstream flooding is not anticipated from the proposed project site. The post-development stormwater runoff flow rates are less than the pre-development flow rates for the 2, 10, and 100 years 24-hour storm events.
So Erica, along with that, the one comment I would just ask, I know that, so with the Rolls Royce, or sorry, NRC is basically saying it's sea soils. It sounds like maybe B soils. Typically, I would always have an overflow unless it was A, and we were like 100% sure. And it could be as simple as just a pipe go from the subsurface system just out towards 117 and just discharging in that swale. I mean, that would be simple enough because it's an overflow for storms that would be, you know, above the 100-year storm event. It's just if you don't do that and they fill up, then it means it's going to bubble up through the catch basins.
Right.
So in order to keep your parking clear and not have it go that way, I would just suggest putting in an overflow pipe easily just discharge to the low spot. I mean, whether it goes towards 117 or whichever low spot they want to, it doesn't really matter to me, where they can daylight it.
That sounds good. So what I'll do is to that comment I had above that was just sort of describing the system where I say no overflow is provided, I'll say something about how an overflow is recommended, potentially.
Yeah, given that
Something
they're
about
not
a pipe to a low
using-
spot
yeah.
and yeah, I'll add that in. And I think
You
a
can see an
caveat,
overflow. Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and then sort of a caveat to that next comment about the downstream flooding is not anticipated. I mean, that also is somewhat contingent on if the system needs to be redeveloped, if they have the wrong infiltration rate in there, if it truly is a C, infiltration rate, and they have to change that exfiltration rate number in the HydroCAD, those numbers could change. So,
Yes. Yeah.
So maybe that's kind of where I'll add in that comment about the soils.
Yep.
Okay, next one. The existing parking lot area will be resurfaced. Existing stormwater runoff generated from this area will remain as is under existing conditions. So it wasn't clear to me, and then Dan, this might be a question you can answer now. The existing conditions plan shows 2 existing catch basins. Do you know if they're functioning? Are they dry wells? Do they discharge anywhere?
Yeah, so they are functioning. That's where our current runoff goes today. As a matter of fact, I called Joe Lynch on it today because we were trying to, figure out some stuff with them. And he actually doesn't have the state plans that were originally transferred to Bolton. So he really doesn't know where those go from a plan perspective.
Are those catch basins on your property or the town's property?
Yeah, that's a good question. We think they're on the town's property.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that. Okay. Because the way that,
Let me take
Let me
that back.
just-
I know that hold on, let me look at my notes. I think it's catch basin 245, is how it was labeled. 540, I'm sorry, catch basin 545. Sure looks like it's on the town's property, but I bet that the one that's up in the west side is probably on the church property.
okay. So here's the post-development watershed plan. So as you can see, this is the area that I'm guessing some of this, the runoff from some of this driveway must be getting into those catch basins, but that, depending on where those catch basins discharge to, it may not be to this design point. So I'm not sure if those catch basins actually, have a pipe that runs under the road and goes to the other wetland system, then that would have a different design point. So it's just something to think about. I wasn't sure since it all drains this way, if I thought, well, maybe they're not functioning. I don't know.
Are they actual catch basins or are they dry wells?
I don't know.
Don't even know. I even asked Joe about that. He wasn't sure either. So I was going to take a walk up there I didn't have a chance to do that today.
Yeah, because if you can pop that open and see if by any chance either if it's an open bottom or if they have, perforations along the side, and they may just not have any outlet pipe, and that may just be, kind of go in and infiltrate right there.
Yeah, I think my guess is they probably go somewhere. They pick up quite a bit of water. We've had some issues with 117 kind of flooding, and I know they've done some drainage redesign over there too, further west. So I believe that they're highly functional. I just don't know if it is a catch basin or if it goes somewhere.
Okay, so I guess our comment would just be to see if we could get some additional information on where those go.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's not drainage that impacts the drainage system for the expansion area, but it's just one of those things that would be nice to understand where the existing runoff is going for that area. And then the other comment, it just, if it ends up, I don't know if it does, but if it ends up going to a wetland system, it's just, taking extra care during construction that, sediment isn't getting into those basins, and impacting areas downstream. So that was
Right. Yep.
sort of where I was leading, with that. And that's basically it. And then I just have, sort of a summary at the end saying, the board favors the parking lot expansion improvement project at St. Francis Xavier Church as it will improve existing conditions and enhance the safety of the patrons traveling back and forth from the parking lot to the church. The board recommends approving the site plan. So that's kind of what I have now for a draft. Is the board in disagreement with anything that we've kind of gone through that, I had generated for draft comments?
No, I think it captures everything plus what we would have done anyway, so.
Okay. So just to sort of make sure I have everything, I will go back and I'll add in just verifying the minimum width of the one-way, and then the angle of the parking spaces and making sure that minimum width meets our parking bylaw, and then adding the
Yeah.
dimension to the plan. Potentially reducing the width of the curb cut area at that most, is it the northern? I don't know if my orientation is correct. Curb cut?
Yeah, it's north or northwestern.
Yeah, the
Northwestern.
western.
Okay. And then the next comment was about the soils and the Rawls rate in the HydroCAD calculations. I'll include that. And then
the only thing I would, Eric, I'd add to that is so when they did their CN numbers, they based everything off of sea soils. So again, it seems appropriate that they should use a Rawls rate that's according to sea soils.
okay. And then the mounding analysis as it's related to that. And then look at the grading at the parking lot pavement edges, particularly the slope down to 117 to make sure that it doesn't warrant a guardrail. And if it does, maybe even looking at doing the sort of that bench area.
Yeah, I would just say that there's a 6-foot drop towards 117. There's a 4-foot drop to the south. So looking at both the eastern and the south side of the site, where there's a significant drop immediately off of the curb.
Yep. Okay. And that's all I have for additional comments.
Hey, Erica, one comment that I had is more than likely due to some of the COVID stuff and revenues from the church, we may end up doing this in a phased approach. So I just wanted to give everybody a heads up that we may, do the grading aspects of it this year, put in drainage next year and pave it the third year. Depending upon how things go, we don't really know where anything is going right now. So there is some discussion about slowing this down a bit just from the perspective of the church doesn't quite know where things are going at this point. So I just wanted to give everybody a heads up on that. And if we did anything related to grading, we would make sure that there's still a permeable surface, there from a gravel perspective, so that all of the drainage is still absorbed from where it's at.
Okay.
Okay.
Great. I don't have any issues with the phased approach. I get that this is a costly endeavor. So, and I think, parking improvements are warranted for this site. So, Dan, did you want to discuss at all the possibility of reducing the drainage system?
Yeah, I mean, I
Tonight?
spoke, just so that you folks know, I did speak to Ducharme Dillis after we got some quotes back on this system. And this is a very expensive system as far as the church is concerned. I think that materials off the truck are 40 grand just to get started here, not let alone no fill or gravel or anything. So I am in discussions with Ducharme to see, I think it's great, Danielle, that you provided the feedback on the maybe the width will help, maybe their calculations may not quite what they need to be. So it will be good to have them go through those again and see if there are any other options as it relates to the drainage side of things.
Yeah, I mean, one thing you could do, I'll tell you right off, subsurface systems are unfortunately one of the most expensive ways to go. They're great in the fact that they don't use the real estate, like you're putting them under the pavement, so that's nice. But just by design, because they're being buried and the amount of volume you need to make it work, they end up being pretty costly. I don't know if they had considered, and I don't know if there's enough room, but one of the things that could be done is you could keep your catch basins where they are, maybe capture and collect them. And, you know, you've got that swale between the parking and 117 all along there. You know, could that area be redeveloped to be a bioretention basin? And so it's an above ground system. You know, you're discharging it there, and, you know, that might be cheaper. I don't know if you have enough area there, just looking at it. And actually, I do see a stone wall. So, you know, that might not work grading wise.
Yeah, but
But if they were just,
but if it means saving 20 or 30 grand, I could push the parking lot back 50 feet.
yeah, I mean, if that works, I mean, and then use that real estate there. I mean, you definitely have the nice thing about this is typically what's tough with bioretention areas when we curved everything is you won't have the elevation necessarily to get there, but you're, you know, right now you're 6 feet above that existing grade. So you should easily, you know, if you push that parking, you know, to the west, get enough space in between the parking 117 where you could have that long vertical kind of right along 117 and do a long bioretention basin. And then you could have an overflow that's like a spillway. I think that might be a lot cheaper. You know, it's still going to be a cost, obviously, but that might be something for them to potentially look at and see if they could do that, because it's just subsurface systems. They're great with keeping your footprint really small, but they're expensive.
Oh yeah, exactly. I was a little bit shocked, to say the least, when the quotes came in yesterday.
Yeah, no, I mean they're very expensive.
Are there wetlands back behind the proposed parking area?
No.
I think this way, right?
Yeah, over that way. Yeah.
Okay, but
But
not
No, but you're going uphill if you go west.
okay.
So I mean, there's a give and take. You probably don't want to go too far west because now you're bucking grade and you're, you know, kind of cut into it. So
Yeah.
you got more earthwork there. But it might be something just to ask them to see a quick, you know, if they could do a quick analysis to see first of all, what's the size of the system that they would need, how would it fit in there, and you know, because that usually, especially if it's bioretention systems, is usually like 1 to 2 feet deep. I know it's got soil meter below it, but it's just easier to maintain and usually less costly to install and stuff.
Great.
I think that's a great idea. Yeah, I really like that that option. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think also too, you just have to be cognizant of the grades of the road. I mean, that might be your limiting factor on.
Well, I think the property line where the stone wall is, I think is right where the property is. So Mike says you can't go beyond that.
Yeah.
So you probably,
I mean, the stone wall's not going to move. That's too beautiful.
Yeah. So you know, keep the existing grade at the stone wall and then kind of work your way and see what you can do.
Right. Okay.
You could also, if you push the parking to the west, if you got rid of the basically disconnected the two halves, you could have different grades and not be chasing the grade quite as badly.
Interesting. Yep. That's good too.
Yeah, and that might help cut down on the cost a little bit.
Right.
Or give you a little room to add a few more parking spots at the end instead of the turn, you know, the connector there.
Okay.
But-
All right.
I know we're redoing all the engineering work here.
It's okay. No, somebody's got to redo something with that price, you know? So,
Yeah, well,
I mean, my $50,000 parking.
That's where value engineering comes in.
yeah, your $50,000 parking lot just became 100,000 with that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly right. That's why it's like, you know, that's why we're looking at it in phases. One question is, how do you guys treat the asphalt millings like we did at the Common? Are they permeable?
The asphalt millings, what do you mean?
You know, the surface
when
that we
you-
did over at the Common, same thing. That was another question that just came up. If we, probably gonna do, just graded base, this year. And the question came up.
Are you putting binder on, or are you just doing the base?
Good question.
So if it's just the base, the sub base of the pavement, that's basically kind of the crushed stone type of stuff, that would be permeable. As soon as you put a binder down, that's no longer permeable.
So is asphalt millings considered binder?
I'm not sure on that, so I would.
Yeah, that's a
check.
question that I just had because I was talking to Joe Lynch about it. I know he just put a bunch over at Memorial Field, and I was wondering, because I know there's no drainage over there. So I was just curious how you guys treat it.
I'm not sure the answer to that one.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
All right, but thanks for the comments on the design. I am going back to Ducharme, so it wouldn't surprise me if I come back here to you guys again if we've made the changes to the plan.
So Dan, what I'll do is I'll draft this letter up. I'll have the board review, and then I'll go ahead and send this final comment letter to Jenny for the Board of Selectmen. And then if from now until when you're expected to meet with Board of Selectmen, if your drainage system design changes, just let me know and we can do this again and I can modify the letter.
Okay, fantastic.
Okay.
Excellent.
All right, we all set?
Good.
So next,
All right. I think it's just administrative items.
I'm gonna bail out. Thanks, guys, for everything. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
bye, Dan.
Bye. Good night.
now.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Approval of meeting minutes?
Sure, I took a look. I didn't have any issue.
Yeah, I looked at it. The part of it I was there for looked good.
Okay.
I'm all set.
Yeah, I'm good.
Oh, do you want me to I'll make a motion. I'm sorry. What's the date of it again?
April 8th.
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes for the hearing on April 8th, 2020.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. And then just the last item on the agenda, the master plan steering committee is working with two high school students. They're doing internships with the steering committee. And primarily they are helping us out with marketing materials, and then the communication and the outreach. And they've been really wonderful to work with. So the steering committee would like to actually appoint them to the steering committee as non-voting members. I think it's a great idea, but obviously it needs your approval and your appointment to do that.
Yeah, I have no issue with
I
it.
don't have any issues with that. I think that sounds great.
So because they're sub 18, they have to be non-voting members.
Correct, yeah. But they do represent, I think, an important population group in town. So it would be nice to be able
Yeah,
to say,
yeah.
look, we've got some high school students that are not only helping us as interns, but they're
Yeah.
sitting on the committee and helping, make some important decisions. So, so their names are for the motion, Abby Ayotte and Megan Irvine.
I'll make a motion to approve Abby Aya and Megan Irvin, to appoint Abby Aya and Megan Irvin to the Master Plan Steering Committee as non-voting members.
Second.
Favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you so much. Oh, actually, before we adjourn though, can I ask one question? Dan Gaffney's also assisting with the subdivision of property over on Bear Hill Road. I know I've talked to Eric about this. I haven't talked to any of the other members about it, but the property at 50 Bear Hill Road, it's a pretty significant property, was for sale, and now they're subdividing it, which is great. We're basically being able to preserve that beautiful property. I think the house will be sold, and then there'll be other 2 parcels subdivided that the neighbors will purchase. So I've received the A&R plan submission. When does the board feel comfortable being able to endorse that and getting out and signing it?
Do we have a deadline?
No, but Dan, in talking with Dan today, he said they're really on a, for whatever reason, he said they need to get it done. They're hoping to get it done really soon because I guess the people that are purchasing the house have sold their house and they need to get out. And so everything's kind of riding on this A&R.
So how would we just set up signing it? What's the process that we need to do to sign it?
So our next meeting would be May 27th, where the town hall is anticipated to reopen on June 1st. So we could do it one of 2 ways. I could either, the easiest way is probably leaving it. We have a mailbox outside of town hall now. I could leave it in the mailbox and, each member could just go and open the mailbox, take the plan out, sign it, over a course of a couple of days. Or I could leave it in the building. I could do it that way. I don't know if you want to go into the building.
We
That was my thought.
just set up a time where we just meet and have it like out on a table or something like that, and just, I don't know.
Yeah, we would just need to obviously make sure we're all wearing masks and we're
Yeah.
6 feet apart, and we could do it that way, or we could do it, individually, or you could do it individually. It's really your call, how you feel comfortable. I think the board could also vote. I could look into this further, but the board could potentially vote to have you, Eric, as chair, sign on behalf of them. That might be an option too, where we only need 1 signature. So. But I guess what I'm getting at, do we feel comfortable enough for me to add that A&R to our next meeting?
Yeah,
Well,
I
if
think
it's
that's
open,
fine.
I was going to say, if it was opening up first, could we just delay it to the first meeting in June, or they need it for the 27th?
Well, just because the town hall's opening
That's true,
doesn't mean that my guess is we're going to be doing remote meetings until at least the fall is my guess.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, that makes sense.
So,
Yeah, I just put it to the 27th, no, the next meeting then.
okay, great. Thank you. That was it. So we can have a meeting, a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Thank
Second.
you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Bye.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Great.
Have a
Thanks,
good night, guys.
everyone.
2 weeks.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.